Hi, welcome to the game shop. Can I help you? Oh, yeah, we spoke on the phone earlier. You're just getting started in a Dungeons and Dragons game, right? Right. Well, you've come to the right place. Yeah, I'd be happy to help walk you through all the things you might need, help you find what you need to get ready for the first game, and hopefully set you off on a lifetime of adventuring. Yes, I personally play as well, and it's a lot of fun, definitely. And I highly recommend it. Yeah. So, did your friend who's organizing it, the DM, mention anything about what you needed to get started? Okay, sure. Some ideas for character creation. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess my first question is just how much do you know about Dungeons and Dragons to begin with? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Seen it on some TV shows, I bet, and probably heard about it. Yeah. But you've never played, right? Okay. Well, that's totally fine. D&D can be a little intimidating for beginners because there are quite a bit of rules, and sometimes it can be a little tricky if you don't have someone able to walk you through step by step. But hopefully I can kind of set you off on the right path, and we can go from there. Great. Excellent. Okay, so first off, I guess I would ask if you had any access to the player's handbook. If your DM has it or friend has one. No. Not sure. Okay. Well, let me just, here, let me pull out my copy. And, yeah, here, let me show you. This is the Player's Handbook. Player's Handbook. And it's a lovely hardcover book with some pretty exciting art on the cover. A large, or maybe even gargantuan creature doing battle with some sort of spellcaster, and someone with a sword down here, right in the bottom corner. So, the Player's Handbook is your go-to one-stop shop for character creation. It also lays out most of the basic rules. And as you can see, it is a bit of a large book. Like I said, it can be a little intimidating for new players, but it's okay. You're not expected to read all of this before the first session, or really ever. It's meant to be hopped around in, back and forth, looking up things as you need them, and disregarding the rest. So, let's just pop open. You can see here, there's a lot of text that explains step by step how to make a character. And a lot of really cool art as well. Which, let's be honest, is probably half the reason why some people buy the books in the first place. But, basically, there are many different races, or as they're starting to be referred to as lineages, in Dungeons and Dragons. You get to choose, are you an elf or a dwarf, or many, many other options as well. And that would be the first thing that we're going to do in character creation. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to walk you through that process so you can kind of get an understanding for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got time. Yeah. So yeah, we would look through the chapter on races and go through all the options that are in the player's handbook. And there are countless other playable races in Dungeons and Dragons. The player's handbook doesn't have everything, and there are many, many expansions that, of course, you could buy to gain access to some of those different types of people. There's all sorts of things from genasi that are basically elemental people: fire, water, earth, and air. There are robot people called Warforged. The list goes on and on. It couldn't possibly all fit in one book. And the player's handbook is already a bit large, and the beginning rules intimidating, and to throw in all of that would probably shut new players out completely. So the player's handbook keeps it fairly simple, but still offers the players, a good few choices for who their character might be. So what we're going to do is we will go through some of the suggested lineages here in the book, and then we can start talking about your class. Now, your class is the profession of an adventurer, how they gain their powers, what kind of skills they have. Are you a wizard, or a fighter, or perhaps a paladin fighting for the good of a god? There are a bunch of options there, and those are really the meat of this book, is the different classes that you can choose, and all of their different abilities that you can choose from. That's really where some of the fun comes in. But before we jump into any of that, was there anything in particular that you were thinking about playing in this fantasy world and fantasy realm and all that sort of thing? Okay. Sure, yeah. Yes, there are dragons. It's in the name, of course. But usually they're considered some of the most powerful beings in all of the world, and are not really a playable lineage as far as I'm aware. I'm sure somebody online has made something that's playable and isn't too overpowered, but let's jump in, because there is something similar that I think might appeal to you. So let me see if I can just pull that up real quick. So, what I just said was partially true. You can't specifically be a dragon, a full-blown dragon, in Dungeons and Dragons. However, you can be something called a Dragonborn. Now, here we go. This is them right here. A Dragonborn. And basically, these are people who somewhere along their line in their lineage, their bloodline was intertwined with dragons. And now they're born with scales and teeth and claws and have some characteristics of their draconic ancestry. So, as it says here, a little description of this particular lineage. Born of dragons, as their name proclaims, the Dragonborn walk proudly through a world that greets them with fearful incomprehension. Shaped by draconic gods or the dragons themselves, Dragonborn originally hatched from dragon eggs as a unique race, combining the best attributes of dragons and humanoids. Some Dragonborn are faithful servants to true dragons, others form the ranks of soldiers in great wars, and still others find themselves adrift, with no clear calling in life. Pretty cool, huh? So, does that sound like something that you might be interested in? Okay, good. I'm glad. I thought you might. So, there are a number of different types of dragons, and so one of the things that we have to do here in creation is, what kind of dragon born are you? So listed here, you can see there are all the different types of dragons. We have black dragons, blue, brass, bronze, copper, gold, green, red, silver, and white. And, well, actually, I would say you'd need to check with your DM first about using other materials. There are some supplements that introduce even more types of dragons into the world. Oh, okay. She said you could use any resources, any official resources. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, I have another book that we might want to check out a little bit later that explores dragons in particular. Yeah, awesome. Well, let me tell you a little bit about your traits as a Dragonborn. Your draconic heritage manifests itself in a variety of traits you share with other Dragonborn. Your ability scores increase, your strength score is increased by 2, and your charisma score by 1. Don't worry too much about these for now. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Your age. Young Dragonborn grow quickly. They walk hours after hatching, attain the size and development of a 10-year-old human child by the age of 3, and reach adulthood by 15. They live to be around 80. The Dragonborn's size is, well, Dragonborn are taller and heavier than humans, standing well over 6 feet tall and averaging almost 250 pounds. But for gameplay purposes and rules purposes, their size is considered medium. And your speed, your base walking speed is 30 feet. So on any given turn, if you wanted to move, you could move up to 30 feet. There are some things that can increase or decrease this, but again, we'll get into that later. Great. You also, when you choose your draconic ancestry, you get something called a breath weapon, which is basically part of your draconic background coming to life. You choose the type of dragon that we were discussed earlier, what color or type of metal, and you'll gain a breath weapon that corresponds to that dragon. So, for example, blue dragon ancestry gives you a lightning breath weapon in a 5 by 30-foot line. Yes, you get to breathe out lightning. Or a red Dragonborn, as you might expect, breathes some fire. Yes, it's a lot of fun. You also gain damage resistance to the type of damage associated with your breath weapon. So, if you breathe lightning, if you'd like to be a blue Dragonborn, you would also be resistant to any lightning damage thrown your way, which can be quite helpful. And you can choose a few languages to know. So Dragonborns, by default, speak, read, and write Common and Draconic. Draconic is thought to be one of the oldest languages and is often used in the study of magic. The language sounds harsh to most other creatures and includes numerous hard consonants and syllables. Cool. Sounds good to me. So, what sounds interesting to you? Have you thought of a ancestry you'd like to choose for your Dragonborn character? You like the blue? Okay. Yeah, blue Dragonborn with shiny blue scales and a lightning breath weapon. Okay. Alright. Well then, let's flip ahead and talk a little bit about the classes. Okay. This is the front of the chapter on classes. And you can see some more lovely art. There are quite a few to choose from. For your first time playing, I would recommend against playing some sort of spellcaster, like a wizard or a warlock, or even a bard, because most of their abilities come from spellcasting, and it can be a lot of fun. I prefer wizards and sorcerers myself, but it can definitely be a lot to manage, especially for a new player. There's a lot of rules already, and then the spells themselves often add a lot of exceptions and changes to rules, or there's just like a lot of nitty-gritty in there, and I think for a first-time player already trying to digest all this, I would recommend going with what's considered a martial class, one that's mostly about fighting or sneaking, or not necessarily using magic as your primary thing. Okay, cool. Well, there's a few that I would recommend that are pretty interesting. So, the ones that are martial here would be the barbarian, a fierce warrior of primitive background who can enter a battle rage. These can be a lot of fun. I haven't played a barbarian personally, but I think my next character, whenever I get to play one, is going to be a barbarian. A fighter. This is probably the one that you'll see most recommended for new players. It's a master of martial combat, skilled with a variety of weapons and armor. They are a really good class for just about anything. They're very versatile and can be a lot of fun to play. But even though I've gotten to play one and it was a lot of fun, I think the lore or something about it just feels a little bland to me, especially in a world of dragons and magic and all these things. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like Captain America, worlds of Thor and the Scarlet Witch and all of those things in Marvel. Yes, it can be fun, but not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah. We have a rogue as well. That would be no spellcasting class. A scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. That sounds interesting. Yeah. Rogues are a lot of fun to play. Again, not one that I've played personally, but I've been in a lot of groups with rogues, and they can usually do a lot of fun and interesting things with their kit. So, I will say that the Player's Handbook rules for ability score increases for Dragonborn doesn't synergize super well with the rogue class, but we're not trying to min-max here, I don't think. We're just looking to have some fun. So a rogue's main ability is going to be their dexterity, and that's going to be tied into a lot of the things they need to do, whether that's stealth and trying to sneak around, or their sleight of hand abilities, trying to pickpocket or pick a lock. These are all going to be tied to their dexterity. So often when building a character, when you know what their primary ability is, you want it to be your highest stat. You don't have to max it out or even necessarily have a particularly strong ability, and you can certainly be a balanced character by spreading it out among many of your other stats as well. But usually if you want to succeed more often than not at a particular thing, the thing that you're good at, you'll want to have high ability in that particular attribute. So let's flip to the rogue section of the class, and I'll read you a little bit about what they do. Alright, I found it. So this is the section on rogues. You can see here, this is a elven, perhaps even a drow rogue with a couple of small daggers sneaking about. Deadly assassin. So, when creating a rogue, you have class features, and these include your hit points, how much health you have. For a rogue, it's 1d8 per level. I assume you're starting out at first level for this campaign? Good, I think that's great. First level can be a little tricky because your health is so low, but it really is good because you get to add in your abilities slowly, and especially for a new player, you don't need too many new abilities at any given time. Better to layer them in slowly as you level up, rather than just throwing you in the deep end at level 5 or 10 or 15 even. That would be quite a lot for anyone, but especially a new player. I wouldn't recommend it. So, your hit points at first level are going to be 8, which is the maximum of your D8 for your hit die. And you're going to get to add your Constitution modifier to that as well. So your Constitution, like Dexterity or Charisma or Strength, is one of the attributes. So increasing that one, keeping that one high, gives you more HP. You're proficient in light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. So you could wield a sword or a dagger or any other simple weapon, but not so great with the great axes or more traditional weapons of war. You're more used to sneaking about and using smaller items that could be perhaps concealed if you don't want anyone to know you're packing. You gain advantages to certain things with your proficiencies. You gain proficiencies to dexterity and intelligence saving throws, which again, I'll show you a sheet later. We can print one out. And all of this will get marked down on a piece of paper for you to track. And all the numbers and things, it really isn't as complicated as it seems. And don't feel like you have to remember all this. That's what the book is for. You can choose 4 skills to be proficient in, and this is part of how every character can feel a little different depending on what you're extra good at. And being proficient at something means that you get to add your proficiency bonus to any rolls you do with that skill, which just gives you a slightly higher chance of success on whatever it is you might be doing. So, the skills for Rogue that you can choose from. Remember, you're going to choose 4. Acrobatics, Athletics, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Investigation, Perception, Performance, Persuasion, Sleight of Hand, and Stealth. Quite a list. You also gain some equipment here, and you gain Sneak Attack, which is a pretty cool ability. Beginning at first level, you know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. Once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d6 damage to one creature you hit with an attack, if you have advantage on the attack roll. The attack must use a finesse or ranged weapon. You don't need advantage on the attack roll if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it, that enemy isn't incapacitated, and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. The amount of the extra damage increases as you gain levels in this class, as shown in the sneak attack column of the Rogues table. And the Rogues table is right here. You can see at level 1, you're doing 1d6. By level 3, you're doing 2d6. And it goes up every 2 levels from there. So by the time you're level 10, for example, you're doing 5d6 extra damage on top of what you would normally do in that particular moment. Rogues can get pretty exciting whenever they get sneak attack, and that's every round. A lot of other players' classes and abilities are a number of times per use, per long rest, or per day. So being able to do this all the time as a rogue can be quite a lot of fun. A d6? Oh, and a d8? Sorry. I apologize. I assumed you knew about those things. Those are the dice. So there's a d6 is just a standard 6-sided die. There's a lot of really funky dice in this game, and there's a lot to utilize in those. Before I send you off with anything, or I recommend anything for you to purchase, I think the one thing that you need going into your first game is a set of dice. There are a lot of really funky dice that we use and throughout the game. And let me show you some of them, and I'll explain a little bit more about what all that means. This is, again, the store set of dice. So we can pop this open and I'll show you a little bit about them. But this is one of each kind of die that you would need for a standard game of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. And they come in all colors and shapes and sizes. Well, maybe not shapes because they're individual. Never mind. It's okay. I get kind of excited when I get to talk about dice. I like this stuff a lot. and, well, getting different kinds of dice and hoarding a bunch of different kinds. That's kind of its own hobby in and of itself. But let me just crack that open. And I'll pour these out. And I'll just put them on the counter here. Great. So let's start at the very bottom and work our way up. The smallest die in this set. And technically, I guess you could have a D2, which would just be a coin, I guess. A heads or tails, a 1 or a 2 kind of an option. We don't really include that in these. The smallest that are included in one of these standard sets of dice is a D4. It looks kind of like that. A pyramid shape or triangle. And there are 4 sides on this die. Well, but how do you end up rolling it? It doesn't end up having a particular side facing up. When you roll it and it lands on the table, there's a point that sticks up. Right? Kind of like this. So, the way that this die works, and there's a couple of different ways that a D4 can work. This particular one, the point all has the same number on it, regardless of what angle you're looking at it from. And so when you throw this one, whatever's facing up is your outcome. So 1 through 4 for the D4. Then a D6, which, like we were talking about earlier, is very important for your rogue. That's a standard 6-sided die. The number just corresponds to how many sides these dice have. Yeah, it's pretty simple to get the hang of. Yeah. So a D6, 6-sided die, like in any number of games. And if you're playing a high-level rogue, if your campaign gets to that point at some point, you're going to have that really high sneak attack damage, and you're going to need 5, 6, 7 D6s to roll per attack. It takes a while if you only have the one. You got to keep re-rolling it over and over to 6 or 7 times. You might want to start accumulating a few extra 6-sided dice if you see yourself leveling up really high in rogue. Then some other of the fun, funky dice. We have a D8. So this is an 8-sided die. And yeah, it kind of looks like 2 of those D4s back to back. 2 pyramids. And this one does land in a way where one number faces up. So you just roll this like a normal die, but instead of a 1 to 6 outcome, you have a 1 to 8 outcome, potentially. So you'll get some good use out of this as well, since this is the die associated with your hit points. Then we also have a D10. Let's see, that's this one. And this one here, 10 sides. Yeah, it's pretty cool. A little bit wider than the D8 because it now has 5 sides on each half. And again, when you roll it, you can easily see what is facing up, 1 through 10. A lot of D10s, the 10 is represented by a 0, and that comes up a little bit in percentile dice, which is this other die here. And this is exactly the same as the D10 in shape, but the numbers on it are all multiples of 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc., etc. And in very rare occasions, you may be asked to roll a percentile die. That means rolling these 2 together. A 10 and a multitude of 10. So, what that does is it can give you a range of outcomes all the way from 1 to 100. This might also be referred to as a D100, the these two dice together. And, yeah, you're never, it's not necessarily 100 different outcomes to something that you have to roll a D100 for. But it could also just be a percentage, like a percentage of something that you're able to get, or percentage of a chance, or any number of things. It can be used to just randomize something on a scale of 1 to 100. But like I said, you're not going to use that too often. The main die, which I can guarantee you're going to use the most in any game of Dungeons and Dragons, is the D20. This is a 20-sided die that, again, like any of them, range from 1 to 20. The maximum number, that is, they range from. And Dungeons and Dragons is a D20 system. And with other tabletop games, you might see there a D10 system, a D12 system, whatever the dice system is based around. Most of the rules will require you to take this one and roll it, and that will determine something. So everything from an ability check, like we talked about earlier, if you're trying to sneak, let's say, into a party or something, your rogue character, particularly good at sneaking, if I was the DM, I might ask you to roll a stealth check. And you take all the bonuses you have to stealth, add them to whatever roll you get on this D20, and that would be the total against which you'd be trying to beat some sort of unknown number that I, the DM, would know and set. So if I thought it was particularly easy, maybe I'd say you have to roll a total of higher than a 5. So that's higher than a 5 on here, plus your abilities. If it's a little harder, maybe you need to beat a 10 or a 15, maybe even beat a 20 or a 25 as the campaign goes on. You can definitely get some really high rolls, especially as a rogue, because your bonuses stack and stack and stack. So you could roll this and add plus 10, plus 13 even. So you can end up rolling a d20 and getting a number like 31. Yeah, those are always fun when those happen. But early level, probably not so much. But you can still get some pretty nice rolls. But that would be how the whole system works. You can do that for your ability checks. If you're trying to hit something in combat, you'd roll a d20 and add your abilities for the weapon you're using. Pretty much everything is tied to this d20. So that's the most important one, in my opinion, for any of these games. And like I said, you don't need to invest a ton of money into the game, at least not at first. If you have a friend who has the player's handbook, and you can loan it to you for, however long you need to really finish up making your character, your Dragonborn rogue, you can download a dice rolling app. There's tons of them free for smartphones, and you really don't need to spend any money out the gate. But personally, I think it's a lot more fun to play when you have physical dice, where you can actually pick one up and say, all right, don't let me down, and give it a roll and see what you get. It can be a lot of social fun as well, when somebody else sees what you rolled and can share in your misery or your delight when they see a high roll or a low roll or anything in between. So, I would recommend it. Like I said, this was the store set. But if I had to recommend a set of dice, I also have these ones right here. This is a nice gray and white set. And like I said, they come in all colors and sizes and everything in between. And yeah, these ones I like a lot. They are gray and white, and I ordered these personally for the store to sell, and it wasn't until after I got them that I realized that these also glow in the dark. Yeah. Yeah. So you just keep them shined in the light for a while, and yeah, then when the lights go out, these bad boys will glow. I wouldn't recommend playing your game in total darkness just for the effect on the dice. Makes it hard to read your character sheet or any of the rules in the book or see the playing board or your friends. But I still thought that was kind of neat, and I like them even more now. So they would be my recommendation for you, and they're not too expensive. Oh yeah, yeah, they can definitely get up there in price. Metallic dice can be $30-$40 for one set of these, and yeah, exactly. These ones aren't so bad. $9.99. Yeah, but yeah. All right. You think you want to pick them up? Yeah, absolutely. I can just pass these ones over to you. And yeah, no, it's totally fine. You don't need the. I don't think you need the player's handbook right now. I would say, borrow your friend's copy to make your character, your rogue, and see how that first game goes. And if you want to keep playing, I do think it makes sense to get it somewhere down the line, so that you can have all the options you'd like to create your next character or just understand the rules a little bit better. But this game isn't for everybody. I have a couple of close friends who joined me in a game once, and they played a couple sessions, and they had a fun time, but it's not for me. And they bowed out, and that's fine. And it's a hobby. Not everybody's going to enjoy the same things, but I think you're going to have a lot of fun. It sounds like your character is coming along nicely, and I would say just, remember it's meant to be a game. It's meant to be fun for everyone at the table. And please come on back and let me know how it went. Yeah, and feel free to stop by if you have any questions. If you want to pick up the book or see any of the expansions we have. I know I teased some extra stuff that has come out that is especially good for Dragonborns in particular. If you want to come check that out later, I'm sure that we can talk about that. Awesome. Great. Yeah, well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun creating a character with you. Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you soon.